Learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv.
Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with AlexDesigns. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Dan from CLVboost. How you doing, Dan?
Doing well, Alex. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. To get started, what is your definition of optimization, and why is it beneficial?
Yeah, for me, Alex, when I think about optimization, I do this for my own businesses, e-commerce and otherwise, and then in terms of client work, I find it hard to put that's where you do your A, your B, and then your C, and then this is sort of how we optimize. For me, optimization is going to be the system for continual refinement of your conversion rates across the board, whether that's to phone, to e-com, etc. And your optimization process per business may be very darn different. In terms of what I'm measuring inside of emails for myself or for a client, or what I'm measuring on a website. I might care about, consumption of content, or I might really just be looking for an e-commerce purchase. So for me, optimization is the systems that, and often you learn the hard way, what is the real finger on the pulse metric that matters? Mm-hmm. It's the unique set of processes that go into place to up conversion as much as possible in whatever your business is.
Yeah, I can definitely relate that. Learning the hard way, because us as entrepreneurs or even, web marketers or designers, we basically learn everything through experience and trial and error.
Yeah, experience is the teacher of all things, says Bonaparte. And I think, at the end of the day, you can read a lot of blog posts about what's important. I should be measuring this, I should be measuring that. You slam your head against the wall enough times, you start to say, I need my finger on the pulse of these three metrics, and these are the things I need to be lifting over time. Here's the processes I build around it. So you go with your best swing, you read your Neil Patel, your Sean Ellis, and then you build out the unique set of checklists, the unique areas of focus for continual refinement in whatever your business is. There is no algorithm there, but it's a vigilant process.
Now, you are the founder of CLVboost.com, and that allows businesses to optimize their profit per prospect, and it has to do with email marketing, segmentation, and so forth. Could you tell us a little bit about CLVboost?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So CLV stands for customer lifetime value, and that's sort of the biggest metric that we focus on. So there are some marketing agencies. So I run my own businesses too. So I'm not like just an agency guy that pretends to work on other people's businesses. I have my own stuff that I manage. But ultimately, there's some agencies you can hire to drive Facebook traffic, drive search engine traffic, whatever the case may be. Our focus is really when traffic is hitting your site, how are we turning the maximum number of them into leads? And then how are we turning the most of them into either sales appointments on the phone or e-commerce purchases? And that's done by converting as many leads on page as we can and testing there. And then on setting up segmented marketing automation flows to convert them on the back end as well. So what we do at CLVboost is we either do an advisory role of showing people how to do that, or we actually go in there, we write the emails, we do a lot of kind of hardcore copywriting and testing and tweaking. So our job is not being the traffic guy. Mm-hmm. We're the, take your existing email list or take the traffic that's coming to you and then make money with it via automated systems, such as Infusionsoft, Pardot, Marketo, GetResponse, even MailChimps when we have to, things like that.
Now, you originally started selling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu products, as I recall, and doing that, selling mostly through e-commerce, email marketing, and the funnel and segmentation strategy. And you started to generate revenue of over $40,000 per month. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, right. This month should be $55,000 in the martial arts niche. We got other businesses, but in the self-defense martial arts, $55,000 this month, most likely. Yep.
Okay, let's jump into the email automation segmentation, because I know I speak to a lot of clients and they have an email list, thousands, tens of thousands, and they're not doing email marketing in the right way. They're not doing personalized message or segmentation. Where do you kind of get started with all of that when you have the list but you just don't know what to do with it in the right way?
Yeah, so I think it would make sense to speak about it this way, Alex. We can talk about, I see it as there's a number of different processes, but a few that I focus on a lot. So when you mention what is optimization for you, as an email guy, a big part of almost any business's optimization is going to be, what are we doing for database marketing, which is our existing list? How are we rotating through that existing list to monetize it? That's database marketing. And then marketing automation, which is when a new person hops in, what kind of communication strings and channels do we have them go through? So we'll talk about database first. You had mentioned, folks that have, 10, 20, 30,000 people on their list, and once a quarter they send out a blast and they're like, all right, I use MailChimp. I did it. I'm doing email. And ultimately, if folks want to end up making the most out of their email, we could use the e-commerce example. We could use whatever example we'd want. The aim is going to be, what could and should these emails do? So a lot of businesses, Alex, do what I call sort of the "we're still alive" email. This is the email that happens once every 1 to 3 months, not at any regular cadence because nobody really cares. And it doesn't say that much more than like, we put up a new blog, somebody tweeted about us, and then once every X number of months, hey, there was some press about how cool we are. It's sort of like a, we're still alive, like we're in your inbox now. This must have a branding benefit that at some point will come back to us in a weird karmic way. I'm a direct response ROI guy. So for me, it's always like, okay, we send out X emails, like where's the money? So the main deal is to determine what is the goal of our broadcast messaging. We have an existing established list, which could be customers and or prospects, Alex. Maybe for the customers, that's encouraging referral or potentially retention upsells. For the prospects, that's bringing them in the front door for a first offer. So when you're sending broadcasts to your prospects, how often are you doing that? And how are you determining which low ticket or initial offers you're kind of hooking them with? And how can we go about testing that in the first place? So the first thing is, depending on your business, if all you have for segmentation, I'm hoping most people tuned in at least have this, is customers and prospects. Ask yourself, sip coffee and get a notebook and say, yeah, there's one thing I want to do to prospects, to get new business from. What would it be? And come up with 2 or 3 different ways that you could go about doing that. Same thing with customers. Man, if I could keep communicating with them and do something profitable that would either garner new business or more business from existing clients, what can I do to my existing customers? Write down some of those ideas. And then during your broadcast, the next time you send out a blast to those thousands of folks, figure out how many sales you got. And then if you're doing that weekly or you're doing that monthly, rotate at least a couple different offers. There's all kinds of best practices about subject lines and open rates, and this is the stuff that we get hired for. But at the end of the day, just discerning the purpose of an email is better than what I call the staying alive kind of an email. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I know it's been 5 months. It sure has been busy over here at XYZ Corp. There was a press release, and Bill Stevens, who's our designer, he did a blog that was kind of cool. Catch you later. You know what I mean? Really dumb. So if all it is prospects and customers, what are the ways we could monetize both? And let's send out separate messaging to each, and then discern. Let's make a measurement. How many of them took that step? How many of them took that step? And what do we need to do to continuously crack away at that nut? If it's not focused on as something that brings in money at all, it's not going to. So we need to determine how could it.
Yeah, so having those clear objectives for your email is absolutely, that makes sense. Now you said there's a completely the different side is, aside from the database marketing, there's a different kind of email?
Yeah. Well, we consider it to be sort of 2 sides of the same coin in some sense. So email marketing and marketing automation is what I focus on basically all day. And essentially, so you have an existing email list and you're rotating messages to those folks. There's even more to go into in terms of best practices there. But then there's also when somebody first enters their name and information. I don't care if you run a consultancy. I don't care if you run a shop where you sell like baby supplies online, like cribs and walkers and things like that. It doesn't matter at all. If you can get a new lead, or even if it's just a new customer. For example, a lot of e-commerce places aren't all that big on the squeeze page. Oddly enough, I mean, you look at like the Wayfairs of the world, up here in Boston, billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company, they're squeezing people pretty good in terms of getting email addresses because they get the game. But even if all it is a front-end purchase, when someone first enters your system, hey, it's a new contact.
Okay.
What is the communication that automatically happens to that person to maximize their customer lifetime value without you touching them? And that's marketing automation. So I can go in a little bit deeper on that and talk about some best practices here.
Yeah, like talking about building out like a nurture campaign when they first come in and making them building your brand over time through drip campaign emails.
Yes, and a lot of the time, again, this is seen as rather a sort of a soft activity where we'll talk about our founder and like how he had a conversation with his mom when he started the business. My biggest thing a lot of the time, partially because this is what we get hired for, we're kind of under the gun to do this when we guarantee work, is that it makes more money than when we didn't have the emails there before. So there is some benefit of just being in someone's inbox, I guess. For me, it's really hard to validate the benefit unless it shows up in QuickBooks at some point. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the biggest benefits are those ones. So at least for the businesses that I run. So So a nurture campaign is apt, but ultimately it's what do we need to do to lift customer lifetime value? So if, let's say, Alex, hypothetically, I run a web design company. Maybe some of the folks who are tuned in here are doing that kind of consulting work, working from home. That's how I run some of my stuff as well. And somebody ends up on their site and they say, I'm interested in, when you have a drop down and one of them is, mobile design, right? And they click mobile design, they click enter, set an appointment time, right? Then they go to whatever your Calendly app or whatever the case may be. Ideally, if they're going to be receiving some email messaging for you before they show up on that appointment, should you, A, talk about all of the various and sundry things you've sort of done and all the things you're good at, or B, speak specifically to, mobile web design and how you've been able to generate higher results by creating, mobile sites or mobile redirects or whatever the case may be. Probably the latter. So the more dialed in you can be, the better. And ultimately, Alex, although you could segment until your face goes numb, the goal is really to determine, if you're a service business and you do, 4 kinds of web design, and when someone fills out your web form and they click enter and they go into your MailChimp, your ActiveCampaign, whatever your deal is, let's make sure that they're being primed, whether it's for an e-commerce purchase or whether it's to get sold on the phone, with the kind of information that they care about. So I like to make a manageable number of segments and hit them right off the bat in that first week with just the info that they're looking for. That's going to, make sure that again, you're appealing to the benefits they're looking for in the first place.
Very interesting. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Now, let's go into a little bit deeper in the actual optimization process.
Sure.
Have you done a lot of split testing on subject lines or actual bodies of email? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So if anybody's tuned in right now and you have an autoresponder sequence that's been running for quite some time. So most folks, Alex, and you've interviewed many folks who I actually really like and admire in this space, but most folks can split test the heck out of a landing page, an e-commerce page of some kind, sun up to sundown, especially if you're driving paid traffic or you have just crazy search traffic. Front-end testing is really common. Interestingly enough, even companies that are great at doing that will have the same back-end, 6 emails that people get forever, for 2 years. No one ever looks at it. Who cares? Look at the front-end numbers. Ultimately, if you can lift your open rates by, 10% over the course of 10 emails, which is relatively reasonable, how many more clicks to page, how many more buyers is that? And if that's happening automatically on the back end, wouldn't that be a great yield? So ultimately, Alex, anybody who's got a marketing channel right now that's getting a decent amount of traffic, you should be able to pull up the numbers on which of those subject lines get high and low open rates, which of those emails get high and low click-through rates, and that allows you to create a hypothesis. Now, this is kind of like the Sean Ellis startup boy language. I'm a big fan of Ellis. We actually interviewed him for one of my podcasts as well. But you can create a hypothesis around, shucks, what does it seem like they're interested in? What types of email, what types of educational content seems to resonate? What's the best way to get them to click and go to an appointment? This form over here, or this line where we asked them to get an appointment has gotten about, 4 clicks over the course of the last 4 months. What the heck is going on? This one really seems to get a lot of action. You start to create hypothesis, and then, Alex, whether you decide to split test the body of the email or you decide to, which is even easier, the subject line of the email, you get enough data to get your baseline metrics, and then you take your best educated second swing, I call it, your second swing. This is where you say, okay, we've looked at the numbers. I see the good ones, I see the crappy ones. I see the nice click-throughs, I see the bad click-throughs. I've gotten a sense from my clients and talking to them about what sort of benefits are most appealing to them. You know what? If I had the first 3 emails relate a little bit more to this and maybe even use these keywords here and here, I'm going to guess that this is, this is what everybody's buying. This is what they're about. Let's give this a shot. And often, Alex, if you've had enough traffic go through, you have solid baseline metrics, and you got a brain in your skull, it's almost tough, so long as you don't go really off kilter with your hypothesis, to not get a nice subtle lift on at least a few of your emails with another good split test. So if you're getting a lot of, I don't recommend this. If you're getting 6 opt-ins a month, don't split test your emails. Get traffic. But if you're pumping human beings through this funnel and you've never split tested it, scratch your chin, drink some coffee, look at what seems to be working, what's not, talk to one of your other coworkers, and then take an educated best swing. You'll find on a number of occasions across emails, whether it's clicks or opens, you're going to get bigger numbers. So if you never split tested before and you're getting traffic, do that. Hard to lose there.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's something I talk about with my clients and things that I write about in general. I call it like the map process, marking along a specific path, creating that ideal click path for the person and coming in, and then knowing what they're going to do, because you can almost anticipate what their reaction is if you built out that map properly. Now, how do people actually do the split testing? Is it a lot of the software is not built in? Are they just splitting the lists and sending it to two different people? Can you give a little bit of overview on that?
Sure, Alex. That's a great question. And you're right. Some software does not make this simple. Some software makes this rather simple. So this is going to be pretty particular per the software that you're using here. If you're using Infusionsoft, which I'm using, which is rather robust in a whole bunch of other fantastic whiz-bang cool ways, you cannot send people down the same channel and have it send half of them through this 10 emails, half of them through this 10 emails. Can't do it. There's what we call ninja stuff, which is like, you call support enough times, you figure out all the janky cool things you could do and like kind of make it happen, but it's not easy. Other software such as GetResponse, many people have heard of GetResponse, or maybe you've even have heard of Drip. So there's a website called getdrip.com. We've referred a number of clients over there as well. He's got a cool little thing going on over there. And actually, I originally, oddly enough, I never thought I would refer people to a startup service to handle something as important as email, but their reporting is clean. Their service is nice. And they have some great functionality, one of them being allowing you to split test subject lines across the board, across your emails. So you can set that up right from the get-go. Depends on the software you have. What I'd recommend for anybody tuned in is call the software company you're working with and say, hey, look, I want to split test this email channel here, this sequence of 10, 12 emails. How do I do that? If they say we can't do that, then you got to go on the Google and you got to type in how to still split test campaigns with Infusionsoft, and there's some fancy dude that'll give you whatever mamby-pamby crazy way you have to shake it out. The ideal, Infusionsoft's great for so many things. I have to do real wild things to do that. If you have GetResponse, Drip, it's easier with a better software, but no matter what, there's a way to slice it. Worst case scenario, Alex, you got your support person that clocks in on Odesk every day. Every day they just toggle it from sequence A to sequence B to sequence A. And it's like, because it's every other day, one of them isn't getting all the Saturdays, for example. One of them isn't getting all the Wednesdays. They're going back and forth. You got to do that over a little bit of a longer span of time to really be able to stay your stat sig, because you might have certain daily events. But, you shake that out over 3-4 months, you're going to see some emails where you say, wow, we need to get rid of any subject lines like that. My goodness. So very, very insightful for long term. Worst case scenario is what I just explained. Otherwise, call the software company.
Now, we briefly touched upon it, but I want to head back to segmentation a little bit.
Sure.
So people are gathering their emails, or they have an existing emails out there. Let's talk about basically how to do segmentation, and then how do you actually make money from it.
Yeah. So again, everybody sort of knows it, and there's plenty of these. I mean, isn't it? It's interesting because you've interviewed so many folks, and they all have individual areas of focus where like the world is full of idiots to the SEO guy who sees everybody not doing SEO right, and the world is full of idiots to the Facebook guy who sees other people not doing Facebook right. So with segmentation, it's another one of those things. It's like, you should be running Facebook ads, you should have a content marketing strategy, you should segment your email list, but unless you kind of get to the nitty-gritty and you can say why or how and where does it make the bucks, people don't take action on it. So I like to make this rather simple, Alex, and here's the way I'll explain it to you up front. First and foremost, the ideal way of segmenting your email list is on the way in. Now, let me tell you why. The reason why is because you can't guarantee when you send out a survey, hey, everybody, I'm trying to segment you. You can't guarantee that they're all going to say, well, I get it. He wants to segment us. Okay, let's figure out which categories we go into. Right? Most people don't do that. Even if you give away a bonus or you incentivize it or you make it part of a webinar sign up or you want to be a fancy ninja guy, even then, most people are going to be in your system as lead, general lead, don't know nothing about them. That's a bit of a problem because you want as much richness in the database as possible. So let me explain the ideal, Alex, and then we'll step back and say if you've already got started without the ideal, here's what you can do anyway. The ideal is as follows. Let's say, if we're going to use a service business again, all right? So we'll say let's say you do something like sales training. Okay, somebody runs a sales training service business, and you do some like online courses and curriculums around sales training. You do some in-person, like real deal workshop stuff with corporate or with nonprofit, and then nonprofit selling. I guess they do. I didn't think about that one very much. And then maybe you do some bigger speaking engagements. You do keynotes. Okay, if somebody lands on your homepage and you don't know what they're interested in, if they can just enter name and email, the problem you now have is, why are they there? We have no idea what we should be selling them on. The ideal is, on a homepage where we don't know what they want, let's let them click a drop down that says, my name is, my email is, I'm going to get this thing for free, this widget, whatever it is. I'm interested in, drop down, boom, corporate training, corporate sales training, workshops, etc. Okay, that guy clicks enter. Now he goes into the database forevermore, Alex. I know who that guy is. When the next time I send a broadcast, he'll get a better one than the guy who I know nothing about. The email will read like it resonates more with his values and resonates more with what he wants than with somebody I don't know that about. So if it's a general page, we want to allow them to put themselves into the bucket where they belong. And that's as simple as, in our very easy example, the 3 categories we spoke of. Now, Alex, let's say I have a tab on my website called Keynotes and Speaking. When I go to the Keynotes and Speaking tab, all I need to do, hypothetically, okay, I should probably add phone number if we're talking about keynotes. These are people you're going to have to call. But all I need is name, email, phone. Why? Because you're on my freaking keynotes page. If you enter your email there, I'm going to make this bold, brash, horrendous assumption that you're sort of into keynotes. Same thing with the online training tab. You go to the online training tab, I give you a free, recorded seminar of, our best 5 phone selling tips or whatever the case may be. You enter it there. I don't need to drop down on that segmented page. So, Alex, that's what we refer to as contextual parsing. So if you are on a page that only has to do with blank, I know you go into blank bucket. Make sense? So we want to segment on the front end, because then every broadcast we send out can make more money. This extends to your content marketing strategy. If you go to HubSpot's blog, guess how many opt-in different widgets they have? 8 billion, all right? They just went public. Now, they're a great example of this. Yeah, if you have sales training videos on YouTube, and you have videos of you doing keynotes, videos of your online training area, and videos of your workshops, the free opt-in that they click to get, the free ebook, the free sample, the free whatever that they click to get under the keynote video should put them into the keynote bucket. All of your content marketing and lead gen can segment them. Then we can make more money once they're segmented, which I can talk about now if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it totally makes sense to me, and I just had a ton of ideas even for myself. I mean, I have different categories on my site for different services that I offer. A lot of people sign up for landing pages or e-commerce stuff. Depending on what section they're on, I just change the opt-in form to segment out them into each different lists. A lot of the nurture campaigns are very similar anyway. I can just change them to fit those specific demographics.
Little tweaks, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, so I can, if I send out a broadcast, now we'll talk about how this makes bucks, and this is great for a service business like yours. I use it for mine, CLVboost.
Okay, cool.
But the way this can make more bucks, this does not involve writing, it doesn't necessarily involve writing entirely new emails. I'll give you an example. In the martial arts space, we have one of our core ways of segmentation martial arts for us in our e-commerce business is weight class, okay? Are you under 150 pounds? Are you between 150, 190? You're over 190. Now, if I send out an email that says lightweights, and then whatever the regular subject line was, guess what happens to the open rate? So long as I don't beat up the word lightweights, it goes up ubiquitously. If I do that, once every week or every other week, that email will always spike because it has that additional relevance. Now, there's all sorts of ways I can frame it. I can say under 150 pounds, ? Same subject line. Then all I have to do is change maybe the first sentence of that broadcast, and I'll make it more relevant, more tangible for a lightweight guy, and we'll sort of move along. So the way that this applies, assuming you're segmenting on the front end, or you send out surveys to your existing list and get them to be segmented, which is another story, but you could do that. The ideal is to segment them on the front end. Once you segment them on the front end, the next time you send out an email, Alex, you had mentioned most people probably send out what we call the red button email. This is where you have a big red button called send, and they just frickin' squash it like whack-a-mole. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, all right, time to communicate with the list. Boom! Yeah, build that relationship. Let's get that freaking plastic hammer out. So, I'm not a large fan of that because there's always ways to make more money with email than doing that. So the way you make this actionable, Alex, is you can send your general leads. In other words, they're not tagged, they're not bucketed, they're not anything. Your general email. Then you can send each one of your subsegs. Now, the key is to not have 20. I recommend between like 2 and 5. For almost any business across the board, whether you're Mixergy or you're a service business, doesn't matter. I recommend making a manageable number of buckets for your own database marketing purposes. Long story, I could go on forever there, but so the goal is you send your general, I don't know anything about them lead. Yeah, send them your regular broadcast. But anybody who's segmented, if I send out my general broadcast and then I send out to, let's say if it's the example for mobile design, if you're doing landing pages and squeeze pages or something, and that's sort of like what you're educating your list about this week, Alex, if we're using you as an example. If we know that these folks are into that specifically maybe for mobile, we could write a different email that speaks about mobile landing pages specifically, or we could basically send them to the same blog, send them to the same email, but in the bottom underneath the link for the call to action, we could say, by the way, because you found me originally for mobile websites, if you're interested specifically in mobile lead acquisition, there's some particular strategies that would be awful helpful. That we've used with all sorts of other e-commerce and service-based businesses. Make sure you fill out an appointment here. And how much stronger is that call to action than, by the way, we're available for a free consultation? It's ubiquitously more applicable. So you can send the same blog post, same education. You get a little bit of a lift by changing the subject line to be appealing to what they're into. You get a little bit of a lift on what we call the call to action, the part of the email that makes money. You get a lift on the call to action by just appealing the call to action to why this person is here. That helps to build your relationship more than red buttons. And it also helps to drive conversions, which is ultimately why, people should be using email in the first place. So hopefully, Alex, and if you need to shake me a little bit more on that one, hopefully I've explained a little bit on how we turn segmentation into, actionable insight to really drive more bucks with email.
Yeah, I think the listener is definitely going to, kind of get it. Do you have any specific examples of great people who are doing this in certain ways, offhand?